Hi, good morning, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Sphere of Success. And today it's a great pleasure to introduce you to Dr. Sue Williams. Now, Sue is, I think, one of these ladies that we all go, how do you manage to fit all of that in? Because she's a super mum, proud grandmother. She has a doctorate in quantum counseling, which is amazing. She's also a passionate horse rider. So it's incredible to have you here. Do we call you Dr. Sue or Sue? What do you prefer?
Oh, either. I mean, Dr. Sue is fine, but just for our conversation, Sue will do. Thank you. Yeah,
Lovely,
it's a
Sue.
pleasure to be here, Deborah. Thank you for inviting me.
My pleasure. My pleasure. It's lovely. And so, Sue, as you know, that Sphere of Success is all about how we overcome challenges as
Mhm.
business people to really thrive in our lives. And one of the things that I've always felt is that health, vitality, energy, our inner selves is very important when it comes to laying down the foundations of a successful business and how
Mm,
perhaps that helps us to overcome challenges. So, what
yeah.
I'd love to hear from you, Sue, is your journey into what took you into what is an amazing sphere, a sector of what you do, and
Yeah.
how perhaps your journey has shown you how that's benefited you and how it can help other people.
Oh, absolutely. I did get into the natural therapies in a very strange way. And through my studies, I know that usually whatever you're really keen on doing when you're around 6, 7, 8 years old, if that is what you're drawn to, then that is what you should seek to do as you move through life. So to get employment in that area will keep you so happy, so engrossed in what you're doing because that would be your calling. So really the only thing that I was really drawn to at that age was the horses, being a horsey kid. But other than that, I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life. And I went into, once I got to secondary school, into the math science area because that interested me a lot more than the humanities side with the history and geography, that sort of thing. But even as I went through school, still had no idea what I wanted to do with my life. I had career counselling, all the rest of it. I got scholarships and that sort of thing, but still no idea. Perhaps I would have liked to have been a physiotherapist or a radiologist. They were really the only things that I thought, oh, that sounds interesting. But in the end, I didn't get scores good enough to get into university to study either of those anyway. So I went on to do business college so that I could at least get a job to pay the bills. So I went into the secretarial admin area. Years go by. I had my kids. I was very fortunate to be able to stay at home with the kids until my youngest was in grade 4. Then I went back to study and went for another 3 years and did a lot of advanced admin, and computers were coming in very strongly at about that time. So I did what was it, an advanced diploma in technology, computing, and I really enjoyed the computing. That was something that I was drawn to, but still it wasn't what I wanted to do when I grew up. So it was crazy. One thing led to another. I got a job in the school where my kids went. By a process of moving from one job to another, I ended up in executive level business manager in education. And just by a stroke of luck, I suppose, we did a professional development activity on mindfulness. And there it was. It was, ah, yes, this is the sort of thing I want to do. And of course, mindfulness and NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, and hypnotherapy, they weren't career paths when I was going to school. So I had to wait until I was in my mid-50s before I found out what I wanted to do when I grew up. So I did the mindfulness, became a practitioner in that, went on to the NLP, became a practitioner in that, and that just naturally led into the hypnosis. And so I am a clinical hypnotherapist. And just by chance, I found out about the doctorate in quantum counselling, which is based on quantum physics, quantum biology, and epigenetics. So you were speaking before about how we should be fit and healthy to be able to pursue whatever it is that we want to in our lives. And by getting that doctorate, I learned so much about how we can influence our health without turning to big pharma. I know it has a place, but also looking after your health naturally certainly has a bigger place in people's lives. Many people don't realise that. But even, and the epigenetics, how the previous generations affect our being today, how our genetics and how we can turn our genes on and off on our DNA strand, how that will affect our children and our grandchildren. So, yeah, amazing. I was just so drawn to the quantum counselling when I found out about it, and started off at certificate level, then went on to the diploma, then went on to the degree, and then did the doctorate in the end. So that was quite a long time between the start and the end, but just amazing the things that I learned.
Wow, so it is incredible that the one thing is I've noticed from when you're talking is the patience that you've had, because ultimately it is difficult to find our métier, the thing that we were meant to do. And sometimes people aren't lucky enough to be able to do that, but that you
Yes.
took that time. And this is the whole thing with success. It doesn't necessarily have to happen in a certain time frame. We can be thinking about this in terms of sort of normal parlance is later in life. And that's great, because I came to what I do passionately later in life, which
Yeah.
is fantastic. You've mentioned quite some terms which I'd love you to explain. You've mentioned epigenetics.
Yes.
I think there was a few quantums involved as well. Could you a little bit, could you unpack that a little bit so that the listeners can understand what does that actually mean?
Yes, well, the quantum physics is way down below our cellular level, and it's how the particles and waves interact with one another at a quantum level. So we are all connected at that quantum level, so we can influence each other, and that just so naturally goes into the quantum biology, which is concentrating on the cells and how our bodies are made up, and how that lower level of the quantum physics just really, it's all to do with then the quantum biology, which is specific to how the quantum field affects our cells, affects all our body. And then the epigenetics is the study of how our genes are turned on and off depending on our genetic history from previous generations, and how we can be so proactive to actively change our genetic structure in as much as which genes are turned on and off. Our DNA doesn't change, but we have the genes on the strand. And in so many areas, we can influence whether they're turned on or off by our lifestyle. So choosing the good nutrition, the organic foods whenever we can access them as often as possible, purifying our water, getting rid of the chemicals that adversely affect the body in our water, keeping physically active so that the body is able to be strong, is able to, because I'm very close to being 70. So I know that I need to keep myself strong and active. Otherwise, once you get on that slippery slope of, oh, I won't go out and walk today. Oh, no, I won't do it tomorrow either. I'll just sit in the chair and watch TV. Yeah, that it's not good for your physical health. You need to keep strong. Women especially need to keep going with the weight-bearing exercise to keep their bones strong so that we don't get that osteoporosis and then we have a simple fall and we have a broken hip. And it really is a slippery slope from there if you break a hip when you're older. So the exercise, the nutrition, purifying our water, all those things, and looking to the good supplements like the calcium and other, the vitamin C, which helps the absorption of the calcium, all those sorts of things that we can do ourselves without having to go to medical practitioners. And then certainly we may need to go to a practitioner for certain things, but why not take that initiative and look at ways of keeping yourself fit and healthy by doing your own research and then doing the simple things like eating well, exercising, drinking clean water, getting rid of the toxic heavy metals in our system, because now you can just get the test kit online and then use the potions that you can get online to get rid of the heavy metals from your body. That is so important because they inhibit the other things that you do for yourself to try and keep fit and healthy. So yeah, be proactive with your own health, with all those things, and then you can start changing that genetic structure, whether they're switched on or off. And you can overcome things like genetic predisposition for things like diabetes, illnesses with the heart, with the blood, all those things. You can be proactive to hopefully at least start to change your genetic structure to overcome those, or perhaps not to let them start in your life if that's something that's been passed down generationally. It's quite amazing once you get into it.
That is really interesting. You mentioned something, Sue, about heavy metals. Could you just help us understand what that is?
Yeah. Lead, mercury, things like that. I know I grew up in a very old house when I was young and we had lead paint on the walls. So my generation was exposed, and generations before me were exposed to the lead paint on the walls in just our normal houses. Mercury in the fish, and these days people are aware of how mercury gets into the food chain. So again, if you're looking at good nutrition, get the organic fruit and vegetables, the wild caught fish rather than the farmed fish. And we've got that huge resource, Google. Go on there and Google all these things and get answers to these ways of giving us the better nutrition, knowing where to look. And yeah, so lead and mercury are big ones with the toxic metals that stick in our bodies unless we do something to remove them.
And thanks, Sue. What would be the common symptoms? What kind of things happen to us if we have those in our bodies?
It just limits our ability to reach our optimum levels of health that we can, because it's not an actual real thing, but think of them as weighing down your cells. They stop the good nutrition, the good bits and pieces that we get from our nutrition and the clean water and the exercise from improving the cells, because it limits then those good things from making the cells more healthy. It limits, or it stops the cells producing themselves in a healthy way. So if you do the test and then get the it's drops, just drops that you can buy that will help eliminate the heavy metals from your system. And we're so lucky these days because we can test for them and then remove the heavy metals by using the correct procedures. In the past, we had to go and get testing done by other practitioners, but now we can just do it ourselves, and it's just amazing. And it just improves the way our body can keep itself going. The more our cells replicate when they're healthy, the longer we will have that better health in our lives, the better our longevity will be. But if our cells are reproducing with the negative things in them, like the heavy metals, then that will decrease our longevity.
Very interesting, Sue, because as busy business owners, and I am one of them, I've just been on holiday. And the interesting thing is I've relaxed quite a lot. I did do a little bit of work because I've got my own business. But what I realized is that whole process again of relaxing, of decompressing, of getting the sun on my skin, that doesn't really happen where I live in the north of the UK. How would you say people can help themselves from a business perspective? Why is that rest and that relaxation important for success and health as well?
And I should have mentioned the stress. That's another huge thing that affects our genetic structure. If you can live with as little stress as possible, that will help your genetic structure as well. That will turn on the good genes, turn off the bad ones. And certainly, as far as my practice with the clinical hypnotherapy, I help people all the time to overcome stress by changing the way they react to situations. Because if you're used to just really keeping that stress inside and not doing something which will release it in a good way, going out for a power walk, or sometimes you just have to scream into your pillow, which is so much better than keeping it in and keeping it tamped down because it's going to explode at one stage or another. So I help people with the clinical hypnotherapy to react in a better way to stress, show them how they can release the stress from their body. And the funny thing is that we actually, if you have incidents and that sort of thing which are stressful or traumatic, we can actually hold them within our body in places. So a funny thing too, because I deal with a lot of athletes, if they have an injury, perhaps they put their shoulder out and it was really traumatic for them because whatever happened at that stage, maybe they couldn't keep playing. Maybe it kept them out of their particular sport at a critical time in their sports life. They may have a recurrent shoulder injury because they're holding that stress and trauma in that part of their body. So we do a scan of the body on athletes who have repetitive injuries, find out what is sitting in here. Just for example, in that shoulder injury. And by accessing the subconscious mind, we find out, oh, it was all attached to what happened at that time, that traumatic incident, that stressful incident. And rather than deal with the trauma anymore, the athletes held it in that part of the body, which keeps repeating that injury. And it's an amazing technique to be able to overcome these chronic injuries, especially in the athletes.
very interesting because you mentioned about the shoulder, and I too had a left shoulder where I fell off a horse when I was doing
Mm,
something on a competitive basis. Back in the
yeah.
day,
Yeah.
nobody took you to hospital. I was just a kid, and I constantly had this thing need to move my shoulder back and into the socket. And I know
Mm,
that I went through some physio, a very specialized physio, and the guy was amazing. And he just did this tiny movement in the back of my neck, and it went. And he
mm.
said, but what he's released is something like he's called it the vagus nerve.
Vagus nerve. Yes.
Yeah.
Mm.
And the pulse, that nerve or the fluid that went down somewhere, he said it was too short, and he got this pulse working.
Yes.
And about 24 hours later, I felt like a new person.
Yeah. Mm. And
Really
again, the
interesting.
vagus nerve is something that people should investigate as well, because that has such a huge effect on so much of your emotional body, which is why we hold these things in with the stress. And it goes, virtually from the
Yeah.
top of your body right down through your chest, down to your hip area. And it's well worth investigating. If you've never heard of the vagus nerve, go and do some Googling and just see how it can affect your whole body, emotionally, physically, spiritually, even as well.
So is it the Las Vegas? Is it VEGAS, or how do you
The
spell Vegas?
VAGUS.
VAGUS, Vegas nerve.
Yes,
Does
and I think
anybody?
the Latin
Yeah.
roots are that the wandering. So
Oh,
it
I
wanders from the top.
like vagrant,
Yeah.
Vegas.
Yeah.
Ah,
Mm.
interesting,
I
interesting.
think that's the Latin root for it, because it does go through so many areas of your body.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Because to be
Mm.
optimized in business, one of the things which I've realized that business is just one part of our lives. And a lot of people are juggling family, um,
Mm.
their own pursuits, um, just living and lifestyle as well as business. Um, when you're thinking about the optimum way to live, you're mentioning healthy food, diet, etc. Are there some, say, three top tips that you could give to people who have numerous things going on that could be pretty challenging, could be all the time feeling like they have to strive and drive themselves to be
Mm.
able to succeed? Have you got
Mm.
any words of wisdom, say three top tips that you could give us that would help us to maybe get things into perspective?
Yes, and I think that stress is the main one. If you can put actions into your life so that you limit your stress, don't think that everything has to be done by you. I know a lot of women who have their own businesses or who are at executive level and have kids, a family, and the kids are going off to sport and music and all the rest of it. Don't try and do it all yourself. Get a friend to share, or a number of friends to share the car, taking the kids from school to music, sport, whatever. Um, Even if you have to employ someone who looks after your kids after school, who'll take them to different places. If you're in that executive level, surely you can put some money towards that. So it takes that bit of pressure off you. And then again, if you've got a family, look at the nutrition. If your kids are eating junk food, then they're going to be just high as a kite, like the kids with the red cordial. Give them the good, nutritious food. Then they're going to be calmer. Your whole family life will become more calm. And that will reduce the stress within the family. So, yeah, the good nutrition, trying to limit the stress as much as you can by being smart and looking at where the stress areas are in your life and putting into place actions which will help you reduce it. And then the water. I think having the purified water or the energized water, there are so many good machines that you can get these days that will take the bad things out of your town water, because there's so much, the chlorine, the every other chemical that they put in to make it clean, to get into your house, so that you're not going to get sick from drinking it, but it's not going to make you healthy. So get a water purifier. One that ionizes the water is amazing, because that will help ionize all the cells in your body to make them more receptive to all the nutrition and so on. So yeah, reduce your stress, eat nutritious foods, and make sure your family is doing the same, and get your water purified. I think if you follow those three, you're on the epigenetic way of doing things, which will benefit you in so many areas.
Thank you, Sue, because you've just triggered something in my head that I hadn't thought about. And it's very simple, but I hadn't thought about it, is how healthy foods in the family can benefit everybody. It's not just a one person exercise. You know, if one person is following a particular healthy diet, but the rest of the family are on different types of foodstuffs or liquids, etc. What I did notice is that on holiday I went with some friends. A good friend of mine was drinking these energy drinks. I won't mention the brands, but there are so many out there. And I don't judge people. I don't say I've got the right way necessarily, because, you know, a few years ago I was like my friends, and that's absolutely fine. But it did strike me, the chemicals that they were putting into their bodies. And again, I'm not actively saying energy drinks are wrong. I'm not saying any choice is necessarily wrong, but water versus something which is pre-made and that you're drinking, what are the reasons why water might be of more benefit than another liquid that's got other stuff in that's manufactured?
Well, we are, what is it, between 60 and 70% water. That's what our body consists of. And of course, we're all day, we're excreting water in so many ways. We're sweating, we go to the toilet, we need to replace that water that is leaving our body. So why wouldn't you replace it with the best version of water, which is so much of our body anyway, so that all our cells can operate efficiently? Because that's an essential part of cellular process, is having that water, the good water in our body. And you really need to be a label reader these days on anything you buy that you're going to consume, because I'm sure on those energy drinks, there's very little natural substance in there. It's based on water, of course, so that it's a liquid, but you've got all these additives in there to make it taste good, to give you that lift that you think you need. And why do you need the lift? Because all these other chemicals and rubbish that you're putting in your body is making you feel so flat. So the quick fix, turn to the energy drink. But yeah, you'll get that peak and then you'll get the trough. And that's such an effect on people's emotions as well, because you get that buzz, that high, but that's always followed by the low. So, and the more your emotions go up and down, the worse you feel. And the worse is a way that you will react to stress if you're up and down, up and down. And if you have diabetes epigenetically in your family, hitting yourself with that sugar, because a lot of them have got so much sugar in them. If they haven't got sugar, they'll have artificial sweeteners, which will affect you badly as well. But that's sugar high and then the drop. That's really, if you are genetically predisposed to diabetes, you're on a real downhill slide again to contracting that later in life. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's for people, and I'm one of them, I don't really like the taste of water on its own. What can people like myself do to make that exercise of drinking water more palatable and more enjoyable?
Yeah. Well, add the really nice herbs that are good for you. Add the mint, the rosemary, any of those herbs that you really like the flavour of. Put them in your water. Make up a jug of water the night before, leave it in the fridge, and then with the herbs in it. Next day, uh, use that, a squeeze of lemon. If you really have to have something sweet, just a touch of honey. Don't go crazy with it, but at least that's a natural sweetener. But I've found the herbs are an amazing thing. And if you put them in the night before, you know how much water you should be drinking during the day. So make up a couple of jugs if it's going to be a couple of litres with the herbs in them, the fresh herbs, and that flavour will diffuse into the water. And it will be a real treat to have it because it's so tasty. And then the squeeze of lemon, that drop of honey if you need it, and it's a real treat. So yeah, that's what I can suggest.
Yeah, no, it's a good one. And if we're thinking about the whole family, setting everybody up for success, again, it's children, isn't it, that might not be used to that type of flavor and thing. So weaning them onto something slightly different, but adding it something that they can feel that it's palatable as well, because change is a big thing. And
Yes,
sometimes to do
don't
it.
get me started on change.
Yeah, that's it,
That's
and that those changes can especially if we're thinking about the success that we want for the whole family,
Mm,
we've got to think of it as holistically. And I mean, I'm always kind to myself in that I know it doesn't have to happen overnight. We can take the time to make the changes over a period of time, which we're
mm,
comfortable with. But then when we look back, say in a month or 6 weeks, and think, well, there's been significant change towards a better lifestyle,
yeah.
a
Mm,
more natural way of eating and drinking and exercising and thinking. It doesn't have to happen all at once. It can happen over
no.
a period of time. Yeah.
And you'll ultimately be so much more successful if you do it gradually. And especially if you're changing your family's diet as well. Do
Mm,
it gradually. Just take out one of the bad things at a time. Replace
yeah.
it with something that's really tasty. That's the kids aren't going to go, oh, I couldn't eat that ever. We're so fortunate these days in the countries we're in to have such a wide range of fruit and vegetables that we can choose, and just gradually change over so the kids don't even twig to it. You know,
Yeah.
have stews and casseroles and that sort of thing where you can blend up different vegetables and put them in the sauce, and the kids won't even know.
Yeah.
So yeah, so we're so fortunate that we can pick and choose and really improve our diet so easily. And with the kids with the water, they have mint flavored chewing gum, mint flavored lollies. So start with that
Yeah.
and just see how they go. And make small ice cubes out of different fruit juices. So that you're not having a whole glass of fruit juice, but the ice made of orange juice or lemon juice or lime, and just drop that in with your water. And as it starts to melt, the flavour goes through the water.
Wow, that's so good because what we hear about on this podcast is to really help people to be successful. But sometimes it's not always about chasing the money and finding about the business strategies. It is actually looking to ourselves as the
Mm,
starting and the building block for everything to happen. And the better off we
yeah.
are, the stronger we are, the more energy we have, and the mindset, the best mindset that we have, we're setting ourselves up for that level of success in the future. That I think all of that what you've talked about, Sue, is really useful and practical for people and kind of easy as well. It's not,
Oh,
too
yes.
too difficult, and it's like, well,
Mm,
that could never be me, or it's just
mm.
something simple that we can add to what we're doing so that over time we can see the benefits. So
And
thank
if,
you.
and
Yeah,
oh, my pleasure. But just one final thing in business. Do you want to be the leader who is the one that everyone says, oh, don't talk to her today? You know, she's on one of those where she's going to scream at you if you talk to her. Be the leader, showing people that your lifestyle creates a person who is approachable, who is not stressed, who doesn't have time off all the time, because as soon as a cold comes into the family, you get it, you're going to be sick. You're the one who stays fit and healthy, has minimal days off, sick days off. The one who is that level-headed person who doesn't have these peaks and troughs in their behavior, because you've got nutrition, good nutrition, because you look after the stress in your life and look at ways of minimizing it. That's a good leader in any type of business. So yeah, it really starts at the bottom and moves up through your whole life.
wonderful. Thank you, Sue. Thank you. Words of wisdom. Truly appreciate that. Brilliant. So
Oh, my pleasure.
when people are listening, and I'm sure they're going to be thinking, how can I get hold of you?
Mhm.
Have you got any contact details, Sue, that you can leave with us now?
Certainly, I have two separate parts of my hypnotherapy practice, and the one that I deal with our sports people, our athletes and teams, is sporthypnotherapy.com. So if anyone is looking for help with any type of sport, whether it be an individual or a team, certainly have a look at that website, and there are contact details that you can use from that website. For others who aren't sport orientated, I have empowerhypno.com. And again, I've just recently been qualified as a menopause practitioner